Okay, here we are live on YouTube. Welcome to the GP Walsh channel, GP Walsh Inner Reconciliation. My name's Evan, and I'm here with GP Walsh.
Hey everybody.
And it probably says satsang with G. That's not what it is. I'll probably change that in the middle here. If anyone, it pops in live. As always with these, we kind of prefer live questions and interaction than, going off a script. So please say hi, let us know where you're from, if you're so inclined. But most of all, if you have a burning question about inner reconciliation, anything GP has talked about, meditation, inner work, emotional processing, all of that good stuff, you are definitely in the right place for it. But the subject I put to kind of kick things off to start with is what is letting go? And I think a lot of equally valid title might be what it isn't. What isn't letting go?
Yeah.
I think that might in some ways be more important because it's a common phrase. It is, in my opinion, one of the most powerful things you can do.
If you actually do it.
Yeah, and my understanding of it through a lot of practice over the years has really evolved tremendously. GP has a very good video on YouTube called Common Misconceptions About Releasing that I think would complement nicely. But when we think of letting go, I would invite anyone to share what your experience is with it and how you think of it. But built into it is often a sense of get rid of. It's almost implied, and it's assumed often that that's what it means to do with something, is like to get rid of it.
And people even say it pejoratively. Oh man, let it go.
Right.
Right? Like, yeah, I'd like to.
Right, right.
Thank you. That's very helpful.
And, I don't know how much we've used this anymore, but we used to kind of use I think we called it the 3 common things that we try to do with emotions and stuff. And one is transcend it, which is often how letting go can be interpreted, like I'm just going to rise above it, get rid of it, push it away. And of course, since I said it, I'm blanking out on what the third one was. Transcend it, try to get rid of it, or try to fix it, try to do
fix it.
something to it.
Yeah.
And if you
Or
think
reframe it.
yeah.
Yeah, that kind of thing.
And if you think, I mean, you described it in that video as take your hands off of it, which I think is the most, one of the best metaphors that you can connect to, even like kinesthetically, the idea of taking your hands off of something. And if you look at it like that, like taking your hands off of something, in that moment, you're not pushing, you're not grabbing, you're not like looking away from it, you're not trying to pretend it isn't there, you're not saying, oh, I've let it go, I don't care. Meanwhile, like the next day, you're still you're talking about how you've let it go, right? But to take your hands off of it, I like seeing it in that way because it basically means you're no longer contributing energy to it. It doesn't mean anything necessarily happens. Like
Right.
you were saying, like I mean, even just as like this candle here, if I'm holding it up and I let it go, something's going to happen. So I'm not going to demonstrate that. But if you have your hands on something you're gripping tightly, and you let go of it, nothing in that means this is going to disappear.
Right.
Because sometimes with letting go stuff, there's other things superimposed on it. Like, well, if I let go of it, it becomes exactly the way I want it. Or if I let go of it, it goes away, which is the most obvious conception of it. Or if I let go of it, then everything I want just happens the way I want. And how about just do that? And like, let's see what happens.
And see what happens.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're holding something or you're pushing it away, you're influencing it, right? And we don't realize that when we're pushing something away, we're actually gripping it, right? Because if there's an emotion, if it's got emotion that's headed in your direction, and you're pushing on it, there's it's being interfered with, whatever it is it's supposed to be doing. So whatever it is you want to let go of, maybe it's an emotion, maybe it's a desire, maybe it's a person, you just take your hands off of it, and all that means is you let yourself feel it. You just let it be whatever it is. If it's a feeling you don't like, that you wish would go away, if you take your hands off of it, you've let go of it. It doesn't mean you've made it go, right? To let something go is to simply let go of it. is to stop holding it, is take your hands off of it. And now what happens? You have no idea. That's the point. You don't know what it's going to do. It may go like this, emotions, it may just vanish. It will change, because what it'll do, it'll start following its natural pattern. It'll start becoming what it actually is, because you're not influencing it to be anything else but that. I often use the example of imagine a rubber ball that's being squeezed, right? It's got all sorts of stuff tied around it, so it's completely misshapen. It doesn't even look like a ball, right? And of course, it won't roll, it won't bounce, it won't do any of those things, right? So the poor ball may think there's really something wrong with it, right? I'm a real failure as a ball. I may go to ball therapy or self-help for balls to find out, how I want to roll like everybody else, and then just make up in mind, well, I was just never meant to roll or bounce. And the fact is, if you just take off all of the stuff that's misshapen it, what happens to the ball? It just thump. It naturally springs back into its natural shape. It has a natural resiliency about it. Everything in the universe is like that. It will spring back into its natural shape when the artificial pressures on it are removed. And that's all you're doing. You're taking off all the artificial pressures that you have put on it. And you've put those on it because you're afraid that what it's going to do if you let go of it is explode in your face and ruin your life and all that. And so it does take some courage. It does take some willingness to just do it and see what happens. It does take a little bit of courage, but I found that it doesn't take a lot of courage, because the first time you do it, it feels so damn good that you want to do it again.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's something inside that just relaxes when you stop fighting it. And then you begin to really understand how energy works, how emotions work, how our sensations work, how all of the inner stuff of life works. You begin to really map your own inner territory and find that it really is totally benevolent. That there isn't any real suffering in the universe. The suffering is all created in our minds.
So one of the things I think to try involving this would be to take something that you've been, let's say, trying to let go of, trying to shift, trying to do something with, and experiment for a moment with this kind of posture where whatever's there, you just kind of take your hands off of it, meaning you're not getting in there with your mind, with your kind of whole energy, trying to do something to it, including trying to let go. And notice the narrative that might be going on, like, am I letting go of it? Well, I still feel it. That means I didn't let go of it, right? Just notice any ideas you have there about what you think is supposed to happen. Because what that does, in my experience, is that if you have something let's say you're holding on to it, and you're trying to let go of it, and then maybe something might shift, like you do relax it a bit, and then you're like, okay, did I let go of it? By the act of doing that, you are back.
The very thought of it makes it happen.
You're back in there, and well, it's not really gone. You're re-engaged in it. If you think of letting go almost like a different type of, not this, you're no longer engaging on that level with it. You're just like, I let you be what you are, and I'm going to see what that is, and I'm going to see what happens when I kind of take myself out of the way. And you notice also with that, I think you could say that you take your hands off, but you're still present with it.
Yes, absolutely.
That's a key distinction, as opposed to like, forget about it, like, and then you're trying to distract yourself. It's like you're very meditative in a certain way, in that you're very present with what you're feeling, with what's going on, but you're noticing where you are engaged on some level, even if it's overly. Not everything feels like gripping. It can be overly fascinated. It can be, that's the word I'm getting. Like you're wrapped up in it. It doesn't always feel like you're clinging or bitter or angry. It can just be like an engagement.
It can just be a mild resistance. I mean, any time an uncomfortable feeling comes up, it's very natural for us to want to resist it, for us to want it to go away. But it's not really natural for us to do that. It is learned behavior. I mean, there's a natural thing in the body that wants to correct whatever's wrong, right? But us wanting to get away from it or resist it or push it away is not natural. We've been taught to do that. We've been taught, oh, these feelings aren't good. And how many people have heard in, the self-help things, to get rid of your negative emotions? Well, who called them negative? I mean, did the emotion announce itself, come in and say, hey, I'm negative,
Right.
and you go, oh, negative, I don't want you. I mean, every emotion just happens. It's very natural, it's innocent. We have decided to characterize certain ones as negative. That means we don't want to listen to them, we want to push them away. But of course, if they're your emotions, if they're your feelings, they're not going to go away. I mean, they're built in. It's like I really want to stop blinking. I'm so tired of blinking. I mean, it's just part of the functioning of who we are. And so instead, you simply be present with it, which means you stop trying to push it or you stop trying to hold on to it. I mean, take an example of something like sadness. Sadness, nobody likes to feel sad. It sucks the energy out of you, it sucks motivation out of you. Nobody wants to feel sad. But if we try to get rid of the sadness, some things are sad. if I lose something that's important to me, it's sad. If I lose somebody that's really important to me, it's grief. It's even more. But all of these are very natural. If you allow them to happen with your hands off, if you just allow them to have their life will be as long as it needs to be, and oftentimes very, very, very short. I heard a story of a Zen master who was having dinner with his students in a public place, in a restaurant, and his phone rang, and he picked it up, and just his face turned white, and he just broke into tears. He just started weeping uncontrollably. So much so that the rest of the people in the restaurant were all very uncomfortable. And he's just weeping, he's moaning, right? I mean, he's completely uninhibited. And his students are like, what's going on? This is a Zen master. He's supposed to be completely, went on for 10 minutes. And then, boom, it was over. He had just gotten the news that his mother died, whom he was very close to. And he just let the grief run through him. And it lasted 10 minutes and it was done. It was the end of his grieving period. I've actually worked with people on grief, and it's a matter of hours or days for it to actually work itself through the system if you let it. Right. If you don't let it, it can go on for your whole life because the energy's still there. It needs to resolve itself. So that's what it means. The Zen master, he took his hands off of it, and it just Right. took over everything. It ran through the system, had a big explosion, and was done. That's letting go. Not fighting with what is, in fact, the nature of life itself. You're letting it do what it does. And after a while, you begin to realize how easy it is to do and how naturally everything just works out. It's the nature of things to do that.
Yeah, that's really important. Like if you let go, take your hands off of some emotions, some things, they will erupt in a certain way.
Yeah.
So if you have an idea in your mind that let it go means it just sort of dissipates, or it just, well, I've let it go, so it just falls away. The moment you start feeling some of that energy come up, sadness, grief, energy, even motivational energy, creativity, you start feeling stuff happening, you go, oh, I thought I was letting it go, and you're right back into suppressing it. Right? So any really ideas you have about how it's going to behave or what it's supposed to do, the ideas themselves are a type of holding on.
Yeah, they are.
They really are.
The holding on is all in the mind. I mean, the resistance is created in the mind because it's decided that these feelings are dangerous and I'm not supposed to be feeling them. And of course, it's absurd. It's silly. It's a delusion that we've pretty much all been educated into, and it's not true. Just try it. Just try actually saying, okay, you're here, fine, and see what happens. You'll be absolutely amazed.
I'm not sure if this is working, but if anybody has any questions or anything in the chat, if you've just joined, feel
Just to
free.
make sure, those of you who are here, if you can just do put something in the chat so we know we're actually
Yeah.
we're actually
We do.
receiving.
Brian said hello, so I know he's here from the beginning, but that was early on.
Okay.
Because we do a lot of times we jump on these. A lot of people have questions and stuff, so
Yeah.
just want to make sure it's happening.
Well, it is a Tuesday night.
So. That's true. Yeah. It's Wednesday, I think.
Oh, Wednesday
Yeah.
night, yeah.
Yeah, but I think we'll get comments on this video, and if you have questions or experiences around this, things you want to check in on, in the inner reconciliation stuff, we don't specifically use that phrase too often because I think it has a lot of overhead for people.
Yeah.
But any of the stuff we do, if you go to look around this channel, subscribe to it or go to innerreconciliation.com, the exercises that are on there, the free ones that you can kind of go through, they are designed to kind of take you into that posture where I'd say it's less, the approach to it is a little bit less like focus on things and letting them go as much as getting you into the place where you just wouldn't be holding on.
Yeah, that's exactly true.
Where you don't need to think so much about letting go. And there are times where it's valid to explore. I mean, we do stuff like that too. But I think the main thing is to kind of get in touch with the feeling of it and to start to explore what it is to be like not trying to bend something to your will, whatever that is, including to not feel something. Letting go, interpreted as stop feeling it, is actually a really dangerous,
very dangerous
position because you're suppressing it while thinking you're not. You can always kind of tap dance around stuff up to a certain point until it really blows up. You can think you've let go of stuff simply because you've like, oh, I took a deep breath and now I'm focused on my breath and now I don't really feel this anger anymore, and I've let it go. And then like small thing happens and it's all right there, So
it's a posture of allowing, of which letting go is kind of a subset of it, because it really shifts your perception of life as a whole. Whereas letting go seems to be more specific about certain things.
Right.
You end up letting go because you're just kind of in this state where you're letting things happen. You're not fighting with them. So you eventually get to the point where you don't grab onto them in the first place, so you don't have to let them go. Right? You're just letting life flow through you, and it really is the ultimate state to attain. And that's really what we train people into in inner reconciliation, because it is a training. Because we were trained into the state of resistance, and we can be trained out of it into a state of allowing and a state of equanimity. And that's the whole point. That's why we do it.
Oh, okay. Hello to Michael, Johanna, Carla. Thanks for being here. If you have any questions or anything you want to address, because we're going to wrap it up unless somebody has something.
Yeah, unless somebody has a question.
So if you want to keep it going, good. Okay. What if the resistance is so strong because the tribe, which is a term that GP uses a lot, just refer, your family, your background, how you grew up, the stuff that kind of gets burned into you at a young age. This is right, this is wrong, don't speak up, you should always speak up, whatever it might be, right? What if the resistance is so strong that the tribe does not feel safe to let it go on a deep subconscious level? I'll read it one more time. What if resistance is so strong because the tribe does not feel safe to let it go?
The resistance is not something different than the tribe. The tribe is a safety mechanism of the nervous system that has been educated and conditioned by the particular experience you had with your tribe of origin, your family of origin, right? Resistance is the tribe. It's not. It's so strong that the tribe won't let it go. The tribe is a resistance. It's using resistance because it's afraid to let it go. It's afraid that if it lets something go, or if it lets something come, that it's going to be that is in danger. It's in imminent danger. The only way you can do that is to first allow the tribe to resist it, right?
Yeah.
You can't. Exactly. You have to first go to the thing that's most pressing. And now you're trying to get rid of the resistance. You're trying to let go of resistance.
Right.
It's the same thing. Let the resistance be there. It's there because there's a part of you that is being triggered by something in the environment that says something's dangerous. Don't go there. This is a threat. Now, it may be a real threat in the environment, but that's very rare. Most of the time, it's a conditioned response to something that's perfectly normal in our environment, but had a certain meaning and energetic reaction attached to it when you were very young. And when you were very young, it needed to put you in that posture to keep you safe because it wasn't safe to exude certain behaviors. Now it is, but when you need that, when it's time for you to to reach and be something that you were never were before, the tribe goes, whoa. The tribe, the defensive mechanism of the nervous system says, oh no, that will get us hurt. And so it resists you doing that. So the first thing you do is turn your attention towards the resistance. Recognize that it's taken a posture of fear, and you take a posture of allowing towards its posture of fear. So you are always coming back to the position that you are allowing whatever feeling is there to be there. And don't say, oh, I want to get rid of this thing, but the tribe won't let me. Right? So what do you do? I mean, now you're fighting with the tribe, right? Right? Which is one of the most essential. You cannot fight with the mandate of the nervous system to stay safe and survive. You cannot fight that. It will never give up that position. So all you can do is re-educate it so that it knows when something is dangerous and when it isn't. And what's dangerous when you're a full-grown, functioning adult is very different than what's dangerous when you're a little kid in an environment, helpless and vulnerable. And it's just gotten stuck in that position. So be with that then. Allow that and watch what happens.
That's why I love the questions, because of sitting with that for a second, and it ties in well because I would say to look closely at what you mean by let go in the question, because it means like there's something in the programming, let's call it that, that is, I mean, anyone who's feeling resistance because it's inhibiting something you want to do, right?
Yes.
I mean, so I'm trying to let go of it, which if you look at it, it's like, how do I get rid of this thing? It's
Exactly.
that again.
Yeah.
And so remember, if you let go of it, it means you're going to allow, like he was saying, all the stuff to happen. The
Yeah.
entire dynamic, the tribe, the resistance, all that stuff is going to engage. And the beautiful thing is you don't have to like get in there and try to let go of it. By not being in resistance to the fact that the whole thing is in place, and by stopping the trying to change it and trying to let it go, when you're just like, okay, I'm going to get out of the way. This whole thing is happening, including this, right? Including all of the tension.
Yeah.
That is part of it. And then, but that can work itself out. It's so much better than when we try to make it happen, right? It's like, because remember, any resistance, I haven't come across a resistance yet that didn't make some sense when you explore it. Even if it was just like, well, my parents told me this was bad. That resistance is coming from the perspective, well, this is bad. We should stop you from doing this. So to let go of it, it's going to maintain that position. If you're trying to like tell it it's wrong, it's just like, what do you mean it's wrong? It's always been right from its own point of view. So you by dropping that position, you sort of it allows it to see that the danger is no longer there.
If you stop fighting it, it isn't threatened by you anymore. Right?
Right.
So you're not a threat anymore. You're not pushing it to let go of something. It's telling you it's dangerous. I'm not going to let go of it. You're an idiot. And it won't let go of it. Right? So you're right. It's dangerous. You shouldn't let go of it. Thank you. And the first thing that's going to happen is the energy is going to go, whoa, where did you come from? It's not going to recognize that because you've been fighting it for so long. You've just given your inner world a little breathing room. You've given it some space, a space that's safe, because you now have become safe, because you can feel whatever you're feeling. You're allowing whatever feeling is there to be there, and so suddenly you are no longer in inner conflict. The world that creates inside of you, the environment that creates, is so powerful that it shifts everything. So now you can actually find out what it actually is resisting. And it may see a danger you don't, and it may be real, right?
Right. Yeah. Right.
That's the point. You know, it may be going, this guy you're about to get in business with, I don't trust him. And you go, oh, that may be real. Most of the time, it's, mom's not going to like that.
Right.
It's going to be some echo like that. But you're not going to know that if you just keep telling it to shut up and go away. Once you're talking to it, you're there, it's present. You can say, oh, mom's not here anymore. It's just you and me.
Yeah.
We don't have to worry about that. It's not going to happen. And suddenly a new environment of safety opens up. It's an inner dialogue that's, kind of essential to inner reconciliation. But that's how it works. But it's really, you picked right up on that. When you use that word let go, what you meant was go away. That is the meaning those words had for you in that phrase. That's where you said it like that. That's the main reason why we don't use that phrase in inner reconciliation, because for most people what it means is make it go away. Right. And that's not what we're trying to do. It will go away or not of its own, but it will transform into something harmonious because that is its nature.
So we got some more stuff. Hello to Masa. Thanks to Joanna for your comment. Okay, next question. Lately, I have been really affected by others' resistance. Feel I will never have anyone to communicate with. Well, just notice that you can only actually feel your reaction to something in somebody on a certain level, right? I mean, the most resistant person in the world, the biggest asshole on the planet, could be sitting here broadcasting, could take over the channel, punch me in the face, because that's probably what they would do, and start talking. And every single one of us would experience that person differently, right?
Yes.
Like, there's no universal objective response that happens to dealing with a resistant person.
That's correct.
And so the value in that is not like, oh, so it's your fault. The value in that is it gives you a place to start with, because if it really is up to everyone else around you to become non-resistant, then that is kind of hopeless.
Yeah, you're done. You're cooked.
There's not much you can do about that. You probably are getting increasingly sensitive, especially if you're into this type of stuff.
Yes.
And it is an interesting and a really actually powerful opportunity, I think, because when you start experiencing that, it's very common to be like, people around me are like this, and yeah, they might be, and you might be too, and you might just be becoming more sensitive to it. But the point of power really is in that you can begin to observe, okay, what are my reactions to being around someone, and am I 100% sure that I'm experiencing their resistance, or am I projecting something? Am I getting a certain feeling and ascribing it to other people? It's, if you look at it from that, if you start exploring it in that way, there is a lot of stuff there that can make it proactive and useful.
Yeah, notice there's a feeling that you're sensing, right, of resistance. And those are real. We pick up on stuff from other people. That's for real. But here's what happens. You pick up on that feeling, but your mind doesn't stop there. It begins to create an entire narrative around it until you've got this picture of this resistant person. That only exists in your mind. The only thing you actually experienced was the energetic feeling of the resistance, or maybe aggression, or whatever it is in this other person. You felt that, but everything else is a creation of your mind. There's where your suffering comes from. If you just let all that go, and all of your attention, and I mean, just let go of all the story, and notice that it's just a story, and let your attention focus on what you're actually feeling, without there'll be no more resistance to that feeling, and it will either shift in some way, it'll pass through you, the person will pass out of your life, because you're not holding on to it. You have no story about it. You're 100% present. That's a walking, living meditation where you're simply present with whatever's going on. God, it's so important, because this little bit of experience that we have, which is the actual experience, is spun into these huge narratives in our mind. Mm-hmm. And that's what we experience, and that's where all the suffering is. Without that, you experience somebody directly, and you will instinctively know whether to move away from them, whether to comfort them, whether to get the hell out of Dodge. And exactly to the level that you do. How much can I trust them? How much can I not? What interaction are going to... Suddenly you're absolutely capable of maneuvering in any circumstance because you're not in a story. You're actually present. And so everything is, you're firing on all cylinders. Everything is available to you, and everything is sensitive and knows exactly how to respond to the moment. That's the big bonus at the end of all of this, getting in the posture of allowing and really taking your hands off of things. You begin to discern clearly that which is simply a narrative in your mind about somebody else that you think is them. And it's all based on that very simple experience. Go back to the original experience of the feeling itself, and let it communicate to you whatever it is you need to hear. It's very powerful to really grasp that we are creating our own suffering. That's just the way it works, and that's how it happens, by creating stories about what we experience rather than being present in the experience.
Very interesting. Masa says, great to see you guys live. Good to see you too. And he has got a question. I have a question. More and more it seems like letting go would mean to go back to a time where I never knew about non-duality and meditation. Well, that's kind of a good thing, surprisingly, because it's definitely not information about non-duality that gets you into the experience. The last thing you're thinking about when you're right in the heart of an experience is calling it non-dual, right?
Yeah, non-dual is another label. These are pointers, these are words to point us back to what? The actual experience itself. The experience I talk about, even as a resistant person or an aggressive person or something like that, the experience is non-dual. Because there's no definition there. It's just the experience. You're not calling it dual, you're not calling it non-dual, you're not calling it anything. You're just present and having an experience. So the non-dual and duality exists, again, it's in the mind trying to put a narrative on top of it. That's genuine non-duality. And the teaching of non-duality that we're talking about is pointing you there. And it's not, you're not going to go back to when you didn't know about it, because ignorance is no bonus either. Nor are we going to go back to the innocent ignorance of a child.
Right.
We want the innocence of the child recovered with the wisdom of the sage. And in fact, that's what makes the sage. They have the complete freedom and innocence of the child with the wisdom of understanding as to what's actually happened. You've consciously entered into this realm of pure experience, which is by its nature non-dual. It is pure experience. So you see that the subject-object relationship, which is the essence of duality, and the collapsing of that, isn't intellectual. It's the way things actually are. And then you can call it non-dual, you can speak of it as non-dual, but you don't need it to experience it. You just use those to point other people to it, right? So forget all the story. Look what's actually happening. Smell the damn flower. Don't tell me what kind it is. And that's the non-dual experience. And that's all this is. It's so, because it does get very heady, and there's a lot of teachers out there who really make it heady. It's not that heady. It's very, very earthy. It's very, very direct. It's very, very human. It's what you're experiencing right now when you actually experience it and not your thoughts about it.
And you can just check in and notice that any knowledge let's say any wisdom you have, your ability to ride a bike, your ability to play an instrument, it's not still there because you're holding on to it. You don't have to keep that stuff in place. It gets absorbed on a deeper level, and it actually gets absorbed better the less you're thinking about it.
Yes.
You can, that's, I'm sure, scientifically proven many times over, but you can just experiment it in your own life when you're really trying to master something in a really tense way and like, I have to figure this out, versus like, you go to the classic thing, you go to sleep and an answer comes to you of something. It's because you're not so wrapped in on it. So the real posture of letting go, at least as, real meaning the way we're describing it, what we're talking about when we're using that term.
Our version, that's the real way.
Right, yeah. Our version is the real version.
Let's be clear.
Right. It's the only valid way
That's
to
right.
use the term.
Accept no substitutes.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, just the way we're using it in this particular case, you would never lose anything of value. You couldn't. If it did go away, it means it wasn't important.
Yeah.
And that's, God, that's the best part of it. It's all that unnecessary nonsense that
That's right.
is in the way. The system knows what it needs. It knows what it doesn't need. And so if something that you have, let's say, downloaded into your intelligence, or, you know, you're not going to start touching hot stoves, you're not going to walk in front of buses, or
Right.
you're not going to forget those lessons. Those lessons are not philosophical. They're deep in the body.
Yeah, yeah. There's all the ideas about what enlightenment is are mostly nonsense. They're just ideas, you know, trying to describe something that is just the simplest, most direct thing that there is. It's just life as it actually is, and it's only complicated because we're so immersed in our stories, and we're so used to thinking that everything has to come from the mind. That enlightened mind is going to be this perfect understanding, when it's exactly the opposite. It's just saying, oh, everything is just what it is, and really seeing that and experiencing the utter joy of it. So I love engaging these questions, obviously, about the non-dual, but I keep pointing back to it, because that's what inner reconciliation was designed to do, to lead you into the actual experience of the non-dual, which ends up being both dual and non-dual, and both and neither.
Sure. So thanks, everybody. I think we're going to call it around here. But please subscribe so you can see we can go live. And by all means, we have a much easier setup now, like we said on the last video. This is quite easy for us to do now. It's just a matter of us being in the same room, which is why it's happening on a 9:30 on a Wednesday. But let us know what you want to hear about. You know, can you do a live, take us through something about letting go, or talk about this. You know, it's much more fun to respond to something you want to talk about and engage in this. As you can see, we're not a script type of thing.
No.
We really kind of go off when we get a question, and we like hearing, okay, did you agree? Did you not agree? You know, so feel free to engage on that level, because we actually, it's not like, oh, we accept that. It's not even that. We enjoy it. You know, it makes it more interesting to say, oh, well, that, you know, if GP gives you an answer, I mean, how did it feel? Did it feel true? Did something disagree? Did part of you feel like it's true and another part feel like resistant to it? You know, that's where we can get into, like, that's the beauty of live, right? I mean, that's way more fun. We could make a video about anything sitting down, but hearing back from you. So do that in the comments too. You know, by all means, say, can you talk more about this? Can you explain this? Can you take us through a process? You know, some of the videos here are process oriented, and we love doing those. But they're much more fun when someone's there. Someone's there responding to it and doing it with you. So please let us know about any of that stuff. Innerreconciliation.com, or subscribe on this channel. That's how to reach us. Leaving comment on a video, I think, is the easiest thing to check for us, as opposed to like messages and things. We tend to just see those because of how we tend to check YouTube. So I think that's it. Anything else?
No, that's good.
All right. Thanks,
Thank you
everybody.
all.